The topic for today's discussion is classroom interaction. I shall be discussing about classroom interaction types, tools, and the techniques. So, very individual learners, when they come to the English language teaching classroom, they comes to learn with different types of personality traits, and these personality traits include differing learning styles and even the strategies to learn. There are different types of aptitudes for acquisition and definitely dissimilar motivation in the mind of the learners. All the types of heterogeneity that we find in the class that we take, we find that such types of heterogeneity should be addressed. And in a majority of schools that we find or encounter, several socio-cultural factors add to this heterogeneity. So we have learned that the society that is monolingual, bilingual, or multilingual have different types of characteristic features, and in the classroom that requires a kind of attention of the people that come from dissimilar socio-economic background. Different types of approaches should be taken for teaching English. The school and society usually prefer certain forms of classroom, and in the classroom we have the formal interaction as opposed to informal type of interaction that we have in our homes or in the outside world. Students come to the classroom with their fixed beliefs, and the expectations are different, and this will be constituting the teaching learning process. Both the parent and the people also value the teacher guided classroom interaction, and for these teacher centric English language teaching, we have some tools and techniques that are used usually in the classroom. In classroom we have different forms of interaction. We can call these forms of classroom interaction. Working in large and highly heterogeneous classes, usually a language teacher often faces problem. The answers to these problems are not always available to the teacher, and there are several do's and don'ts of any known method of teaching. So a teacher must look elsewhere for ways that can help her to engage the students' attention. So when the classroom interaction goes on, the teacher often experiences varying degrees of success and failure, and some questions are to be addressed in order to achieve desirable results, and we should always try to understand why this is happening and why this is not happening in the real practical classroom situation. So usually the experience of the teacher in the classroom, is it to maximize the value of the input or the intervention in the process of learning? So what are the different types of differences in the success rate? So we will try to seek the answer to these questions. And first of all, we need to know that in a language classroom, one has to gain knowledge by a careful study of the interaction that takes place in the classroom. We should try to make the classroom session productive, and such can be achieved through certain tools and techniques that the English language teachers and scholars working in this area have developed. In the classroom, the interaction usually takes with the whole class, and the teacher always tries to interact not with particular students but with all the students in the class. And this interaction with the group, or if the teacher arranges the class in pair or focuses even on an individual student, the interaction takes place with each other in group or in pairs, or as an individual with the teacher, or as a class as a whole. So the students in the class work with materials or aids and attempts to tasks, often again individually or in group or even in pair. So we should always try to see whether the students in the class work on their own with or without your support, with or without the support of the teacher. Some other forms of classroom interaction that form the part of our common teaching experience can be listed as follows. Say a teacher comes to the class and then demands a kind of response, collective response from the students, and again through some drills, oral drills, the teacher expects some outcome, results. The teacher can also work in group or pairs and can sometimes work by organizing some kind of competition among the students or make the learning more cooperative. We have learned different methods and approaches to classroom teaching, especially English language teaching, and this can help us to develop our own necessary tools of interaction. The learners usually select their own learning tasks, and in some cases the learning materials and work more or less independently, and this is a kind of self-learning habit that must be inculcated among the students through classroom interaction. Students are to be facilitated or encouraged to ask questions. This is a very important part, a valid part of classroom interaction. They should always be encouraged to raise questions, raise problems, and to which the teacher should address, try to solve the problem, or engage the students to find their own answers or collectively evolve some kind of results or solve the problem. Some basic tools and techniques are therefore essential in the classroom interaction. Say a class of 45-minute duration, 50-minute duration of an hour-long lecture usually allows in the lecture-centric method, teacher-centric method, no give and take, no kind of questions and no kind of responses. So this one-sided interaction or one-sided communication from the teacher to the student is not regarded as a good teaching method. To sustain learners' interest, it is always to be taken into consideration the interest of the class by giving the students greater opportunities to participate by responding to or by asking questions, even seeking clarification, raising doubts. So this will help the students to solve some of the problems within the classroom. Such occasions are to be created by the teacher so that the questions come out from the students and serve the pivotal function of interaction in the classroom. So the number of such questions that arise in the classroom and the frequency by which the questions are raised in the classroom enhance the quality of education or quality of learning, or rather the teaching learning interactive process. A possible way of bringing out the importance of qualitative difference between the students is by placing the students in binary groups, and the teachers may therefore allow the students to display their genuine or referential agreement or questions, and even to some agreement, to some closed and open-ended observations. They can also be encouraged to have a factual or evaluative learning. So there are different types of questions that can be raised in the classroom. The first of such type can be regarded as a display question. A display question is one to which the teacher already knows the answer. In most cases the learner too also knows that, but the learner doesn't answer it to satisfy the teacher. So these questions are of rhetorical nature, yes no answers, or of a kind of development from the classroom interaction where the answers are there ingrained in the discussion. So if it is a class of say 7th or 8th standard, so in any place this can be used, and such display questions do not normally generate new inform new type of information. They just keep on developing, generating some kind of information that the students gradually accumulate, and therefore the newly learned grammar, or say formation of sentence, or say the usage of any of the skill, LSRW skill, listening, speaking, reading or writing skill, that can be acquired by the students through the display questions. The other type of question that we find in the classroom is genuine question, referential questions. We call this referential question, that actually demand real answers, and these questions often require some amount of thinking, some amount of effort from the students. Such a question may ask the pupil to infer a meaning, to evaluate a statement, or to separate fact from fiction. Say, what is more interesting? Say, a student may be asked, what makes you more interested in reading books or in watching TV? So which is your most favorite sports? So this type of question, referential questions, demand an explanation and some kind of learning habit that is based on generative thinking, and the answers are subjective and individualistic. The third type of question is a closed question. This closed question has a single correct answer. Say I ask, what is the capital of West Bengal? So this question has only one answer. So who is the governor of West Bengal, or say who is the chief minister of West Bengal? So these questions have one answer, and these are closed questions. So if these questions are combined together, they can also generate a single closed question with two answers, but these two answers are also ingrained in the closed question itself. The fourth type of question, on the other hand, is called the open-ended question. In this open-ended question, usually the opinion that is more or less correct, more than one correct answer is possible. Say a question that is related to a discussion. So is it better to board an aeroplane or a train to travel from Kolkata to Mumbai? So this type of question that is open-ended, a student may say, yes, the rail journey is better than the journey by airplane. The other student may say that airplane journey is better than journey by road or by rail. So one may agree, one may not agree, and one may stand or may even opt for a third alternative. So these type of questions are open-ended questions. Then we have factual questions that determines that the same required fact of information, and these are not normally the reflection of events, attitudes or beliefs. So if someone asks, how far is moon from the earth? So that is based on calculation. Someone may say that it is far, far away, but that is not the correct answer. Someone may have the exact measurement of the distance between the earth and the moon. So factual questions are based on fact. So again, the question, who is the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, is actually a closed question, but also a factual question, is based on a fact. So these type of questions, that who makes a better leader, men and women, men or women. So based on experience and example, this can also emerge as factual question. So these stay in between closed questions and open-ended questions. So factual questions are fact-based and empirical in their answers based on inferences. So we can have some way of looking at questions and what the questions are meant to do in the classroom interaction. So Benjamin Bloom, working at the University of Chicago, developed a taxonomy of questions. So this is famously called as Bloom's taxonomy. So Benjamin Bloom, he divided questions into 6 types and defined what each does. Number 1, he called them knowledge question. Knowledge question that asks students to get at the information given in their book or in any other source of knowledge. Say, where is the capital of Andhra Pradesh located? So information based question. and information based on our general knowledge questions. The second type of question, according to Benjamin Bloom, is called comprehension question, where students are asked some questions based on their understanding. And usually in comprehension text, in reading skill, we usually give such comprehension questions, and based on the passage some questions are set, and students are required to go for intensive reading of the passage, and after intensive reading of the passage respond to the question accordingly. So this type of question is called comprehension question. The third type of question according to Bloom is application question, that involves using one's understanding. Say this is also inferential. Say how does exercise help you to build your mind and body? These type of questions that are based on practical application of your understanding, of your knowledge. Fourth type of question is called analysis question. In analysis question, we are asked to look at parts of a situation and through an analytic understanding, analytic inference, derive our own results and conclusion. Say a question like this: which is better for our good health? Which is better for our good health? Say vegetarian food or non-vegetarian food. So this requires a kind of analysis of the pros and cons, of the positive sides and the negative sides of each food habit, and then come to an inferential understanding of this. The fifth type of question according to Bloom is a synthesis question. In case of synthesis question, we have the students to respond by combining their skills and create some kind of new synthetic ideas. So through synthesis, the students arrive at general understanding of the things. So what can we do to make the girl child safe in our society? This type of question. So questions that requires synthesis through inference, and this type of question is called synthesis question. The sixth type of question according to Benjamin Bloom is called evaluation question. Evaluation questions usually ask people to make their own judgments that are based on facts, judgments that are based on evaluation of things. For example, the construction of bridges across the river or construction of dams, are they good for the nature or society? So such answers are evaluative, and according to Bloom, these are called evaluation questions. In order to improve the quality of teaching in a classroom, a majority of questions that the language teachers of English language teaching asks should demand efforts at meaning making. Display questions have their own place in classroom management, and to some extent in providing opportunities for limited language use, repeating new sounds, words, structure through oral drill, especially in our audiolingual method. However, because such questions are rarely asked in life outside the classroom, there is a tendency among the students to forget the application of such questions outside the classroom, and their use in teaching has to be justified by some special type of teaching, learning or classroom management purposes, and they may definitely serve in the process of imparting the lesson, but they must also be guided by some techniques. Other important research findings on classroom questions also apply to most language classrooms. First, say if we restrict the questions to one section of the class, say group A, you make a question and then allow the group B, the second group, to respond to the question, or say separate the class into intelligent students and students who are intellectually challenged or who are slow learners. So although learners' learning is always relatable to the observable participation in the classroom interaction, opportunities for answering questions or even initiating the students to participate in the formation of question and responding to the question should be given priority in the classroom. So we have in the classroom, in the foreign language classroom, teachers' task is to have some kind of patience in order to generate questions in the classroom and allow the students to answer to the question. Several researchers have shown that students in the classroom often given insufficient time to give answer to the questions. The teachers do not wait for the answers, and even before the students can give answer, thinking reflectively or evaluating or analyzing the question, the teachers gives the answer. In such cases, there is a setback in the student. A student might feel disturbed and the flow of thought might be broken. So there is this patience in the art of asking question necessary for the teachers in the classroom. Students show that if more time is given to them, they are able to use their cognitive faculty more than their rote memory. Usually in the rapid fire question type, rote memory is used and analytical questions are avoided. So in the participation or interaction in the classroom, the one-way traffic should be avoided, and teachers should allow the students to participate in the interaction. The more interaction through the question answer session, the more will be the success of the classroom interaction, and this is the essential tool for classroom teaching. So we have usually several types of real classroom situation. Say every average length of students' response may vary. Some student might respond early, some student might take some time to respond to the same question. So speculative responses are also possible. Some students might just make a guesswork and give answers, and may take lesser time to make such guesswork. Other students may take more time in order to come to the understanding of the question. Some questions are also student initiated, and such students initiated questions should also be responded. In several cases, we have the teachers unable to respond to the questions of the student. Teacher's task is also to confess frankly in the classroom and to purchase more time and allow his own mind to work or her own mind to work in the classroom, so that a good response is stimulated and that is true rather than false one. So through this student-student interaction, several questions and responses also develop, and the statements and responses based on inference. So in the classroom situation, we must, through such interaction, try to see whether the teacher can stimulate the interest in the mind of the learners, whether the teachers are absolutely clear and comprehensible to every section of the class, irrespective of their levels of learning. Does the teacher encourage fresh thinking and self-learning habit in the mind of the students? Do a majority of them allow a variety of questions in the class? Are all these questions for different ability levels? Are these questions phased out suitably to some sections of the students? All these are to be taken into mind for an effective classroom interaction. So we have different types of questions, and in order to make questions, we have to always pre-plan things. What type of questions are to be asked in the classroom? How often are questions to be asked in the classroom? And where all the questions presented in the classroom are comprehensible, questions in simple language. In some cases, we find that the teachers ask questions. Usually in webinars and seminars nowadays, we find that the questions that are asked are longer than the answers, and that makes the comprehension part negligible. So we have to see where there are questions for weak as well as for the bright students in the classroom. How well or evenly are the questions distributed among the students? Are the students aware of the wait time allowed for them to respond and to process the answer to the question before actually answering it? If not, are there any good reasons for not giving enough opportunity to the students to respond? So we should always see what changes would the teacher like to introduce to make the questions to serve the aims better. What means did the teacher use to explain the obstacle? There are several obstacles or hindrances to the answers. So does the teacher address to such obstacles or hindrances? So if the students do not respond, what is the response of the teacher? So why do they fail to respond? That should also be taken into the mind of the teacher, by the teacher, and the teacher should always respond accordingly. How should a teacher with a defining vocabulary explain the meaning? So especially in English language teaching, it becomes very difficult without the use of the grammar translation method or the second language, first language as a tool for teaching English. It becomes difficult. The stock of words should be there in order to explain things. So communicative language teaching, or CLT, often allows this type of interaction among the student and the teacher, so that the learning process becomes more comprehensible. So what exactly you are going to do in the classroom depends on a pre-planned form, and where the interaction is given priority over monologic discourse in the classroom. So we have such types of instruction that are clear, and such instructions are very crucial to both the materials and the process of teaching. Every good task becomes useless when the instruction given make no sense at all to the class. So we take, for example, such situations. Say in class 5 or class 4 English language teaching practice book, we get a kind of question that appropriate articles are given, and you have to replace the appropriate article with inappropriate article, or say appropriate articles are to be placed in the blank. So of these two types of questions, for which one is more clear? So first one is definitely confusing because it uses some kind of irony in the shape of question. So such vagary in the kind of referential question should be avoided in the classroom interaction. So question should be simple, straightforward, and even if it is of a referential type or reflective type or analytic type or evaluative type, should be based on a comprehensible structure. WH questions are usually used in framing the questions, and such WH questions should be straightforward, simple, and comprehensible. So we find such questions usually in the grammar book. Substitute appropriate words or phrases for the italicized ones and make your own meaningful sentences using each such substituted word. So a sentence is given, and that sentence you have to identify first the word or phrase that is italicized. That depends on the typographical accuracy, and once the italicized was identified, the second task is the students are asked to make a meaningful sentence out of that word, and the student is also asked to substitute the word. So it is a threefold task. So if you just split the task into three parts, so identify the italicized word and give its meaning. Okay. Second, frame a sentence of your own with the new meaning, or replace the original word with the new meaning and frame a sentence of your own. So if the students are unable to grasp the basic questions, how will they respond? And they keep on reading the question and again and wasting their valuable time, and by the time their answers are in their mind, the time is over. As because most of the examinations that take place usually in English language teaching are also time frame. So the teacher should always keep in mind the accuracy of the question that will fetch an accurate answer. So here we have kind of instruction that is given. Rewrite the sentence following the instruction given below, and then there is a long passage, and then the instruction is given. So first part of the question is forgotten by the student after reading the passage, and when the last part of the question comes, the student has to go back to the first part of the question and somehow relate to the first part of the question with the second part of the question, and then again revisit the comprehension passage and then respond to the answer. So this makes the student activity more complicated. Therefore the question should be more objective, more objective, based on comprehensibility, factuality, and the evaluative or the analytic part should be ingrained within the question. So it is not a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle that the students are asked. So you are not asking the students to solve riddles of the questions. Rather, you are asking the students to solve and give appropriate responses to the questions. Especially in the grammar classrooms, this should be followed. So we have different types of activities in the classroom in order to fetch responses and to allow the students to learn different skills. The LSRW skill we usually use in the classroom, different types of activities. So we have two basic type of activities that we conduct in the classroom. One is called pair work, the other is called group work. So in case of pair work, what happens? A student pair is selected, they are seated side by side, and accordingly they are given tasks. So the entire classroom is divided into such pairs and activities are generated. Say in listening classroom, listening skills classroom, so what is done is that one person A can say something, person B has to listen carefully and to say what person number A has said. Person number B again says something and person number A has to listen intently and to repeat what person number B has said. So through this pair work, listening activity can be done. Similar activities can also be conducted for developing the other skills like speaking skill, like the writing skill or reading skill. We have group work, usually group work. So in a live language classroom, the group is divided. Group is divided or formed on the basis of number. Even two persons forming a pair can be a group, 3 persons can form a group, 4 persons, 5 persons. So in order to exchange greetings, so if you have a group of 4 persons for ideal meeting, or say a reunion situation is given, or a meeting in a railway platform, so group work can be initiated in the classroom. Debate discussions can also be done with a small group interaction in the classroom, and this allows a rich opportunity to the students, especially for developing their listening and speaking skill. Even in order to encourage the students to develop their reading and writing skill, such pair work and group activities can be done in the classroom. So this group work has been abbreviated as GW, can be an obvious source for rich and rewarding learning experience in the classroom. Teachers of different subjects can also use such pair work and group work in the individual classroom for learning activities. Group work has not found acceptance among the scholars about the number of students that should be included in a group, and the results that are productive in different types of environment are also much speculative. Many teachers use group activities in the classroom and they use this for productive alternative, and few of them also have observed that through such classroom interaction, linguistic and pedagogic instructions are given, but students often have a tendency to learn the wrong things, perhaps in the right manner. So learning the wrong thing in a right manner or learning the right things in a wrong manner, both are correct in English language learning situation. But the grammatic structures are to be understood in such a manner, both in the behaviorist and the cognitive schools of learning of language acquisition should be learned in such a manner that error corrections and the interactive process should go hand in glove together. So the size and composition of classroom is a matter. In some cases we have large classrooms and there the group activities are not monitored properly. Even the pair work are not monitored properly. In a crowded classroom situation, the noise level has to be controlled by the teacher. And if the teacher encourages such activities in the classroom, especially in English language learning classroom, what happens is that the classroom interaction turns into a chaotic experience. So the group work should have some kind of proper arrangement, and it requires large space. Even the furniture in the classroom should be arranged, and seating arrangement should be appropriately made. Even when the groups are formed, there should be some kind of neutrality regarding gender, regarding the class of the students. So it should be always well planned in advance. So in the lesson planning, the teachers must always take this into account. The number of students that are to be organized in groups or in peer work. The most obvious group size can be of 3 and 4 students, and appropriate say 4 or 5 at most. So observation and manipulation of group size from say 3 to 7 can also be done. So in some cases teachers have experimented with adding on numbers in the group by introducing new persons in the group for interaction. These methods have worked in the classroom. So it is the purpose of the teacher to make the classroom interaction more interactive and interesting. And in order to do that, innovations in classroom techniques are must. Otherwise the classroom just becomes a routine drill, and that is more suitable for the audiolingual drills that took place in the military schools for language teaching. In order to reach a kind of good type of learning in the classroom, we must have some kind of conclusive evidence from research, and such research are varied according to the geographical location, according to the class, according to the demography, according to the linguistic communities involved. So we do not have any kind of formula for such techniques that should be implemented in the classroom. So according to the local situation, the teachers must try to reach the global culture of teaching, and so local type of technique should be evolved to classroom teaching, especially for teaching English as a second language or as a foreign language in Indian classrooms. There are some evidences in general education. We have seen that 6, 7 or 8, this size is almost okay for the group work. So in some cases the peer work is done meticulously by the teachers, and especially in the junior classes the peer works work efficiently. In the higher classes group works are more efficiently because of the level of discipline that we find in the higher classes. Self-learning habit also determines the nature of these activities in the classroom, either in pair or in group. So we have these different views of EFL teaching, tools and techniques that are employed in the classroom. The group work should be always organized, keeping in mind the mother tongue of the students, and the error correction should go hand in glove. As I said earlier, the errors that come to block the development of language in the learner should be kept outside. So no shame, no blame can be a good practice in the classroom, because everyone in the classroom, including the teacher, should think of himself or herself as a learner in the English language classroom. Every teacher should be a learner along with the student, and through this process of collective learning only, collective correction of errors, the members of the group learn language faster. So in the experience of the teachers, we have often find that different set of findings emerge, and in some cases the teachers feel that the mother tongue or the first language should be used in the proper teaching of the second language. In some cases students are allowed to use their mother tongues, in some cases students are forbidden to use their mother tongues. Whatever the technique is, it should be pre-planned and organized accordingly. Methods and approaches are there as guidelines, and these guidelines should be followed in order to achieve the necessary goals of language learning, language teaching. Successful groups have several times demand that proper planning should be done. Otherwise there is a chaos and confusion. Even those learners are confused that are they playing games or they are learning. Such activities are often of different nature. In my own classroom, I often use such dramatic activities in order to encourage the students to participate through skit, through improvisational drama activities. and through this we have often experienced that students can frame their own sentences, can generate their new types of sentences. Even the bilingual discourse often help to develop the first and the second language. Both the languages grow together through this. So it is a comprehensible cognitive part of the learning process that is more important for giving effective language training to the students. So we can say that in English language teaching, such combination of different forms using different tools and techniques of English language learning should be incorporated, and effective planning should be made beforehand. So we can just conclude this short lecture that group work, individual work, pair work, or simply teacher directed work, whole class activity, all these are to be organized by the teacher, and the teacher will be taking decision in consensus with the agreement, general agreement of the students. What works and when that works in the classroom depends on the observation of the teacher. So effectively using the experience of classroom interaction is the tool that should be there used by the teacher. Variables should be taken into account, and the different variables should be all brought together in order to make the classroom interaction, the tasks that are taken, the questions that are generated in the classroom, and the learners' preparedness for undertaking these activities all together. So therefore, in the English language teaching, group work has to be explored further along with pair work and activities like music, song, drama, discussion, debate, elocution, extemporate. All these activities should be brought in the English language teaching classroom. So this is what I have to say about tools and techniques. So the questions that may be framed from this. So what are the different types of questions according to Bloom? So what are the other types of questions as explored by the linguists or English language teachers? So what is the difference between group work and pair work? So why is it necessary for the teacher to make a lesson planning beforehand? What are the different tools and techniques? Why is classroom interaction important in the classroom? So for this short lecture, I have mainly followed M.L. Tikku's book on this area, along with some other works like Bloom's taxonomy of educational objective cognitive domains. I've also used P. Foster's classroom perspective on negotiation of meaning, Morgan and Saxon's teaching questions and learning. So group work in language classroom is another work by M.L. Tikku. So we have come to this necessary conclusion of interaction. Thank you very much for your attention.